The history arc on this channel was not something I was really expecting, but since you've been enjoying it, I figure we're going to dive in head first. And today, I wanted to check out another channel you've been recommending, Extra Credits, and their video on D-Day. Welcome back, friends, and a special welcome to all the new friends out there. I'm YoBGS, and ever since I watched Oversimplified's videos on World War II, and I saw some of the photos and stories from D-Day, like, it's something that I've wanted to learn more about. Now, again, fortunately, you recommended in the credits that I can check out D-Day, the Great Crusade, which is by Extra Credits. It's like part of their Extra History section, and I'm pumped for it. But like it's weird to be pumped with a sense of reverence, you know what I mean? And it wasn't until right before I started this video I noticed there's actually 4 parts on this. Should I check the other parts out? Leave a comment down below. Let me know if it's something you want me to take a look at, and maybe we'll get to it. I know tomorrow I've got some more Hamilton stuff coming, so I'm looking forward to that. But here we go. Let's see what Extra Credits is all about.
When the signal is given, the whole circle of avenging nations will hurl themselves upon the foe and batter out the life of the cruelest tyranny which has ever sought to bar the progress of mankind.
Well, first things first, the animation here is pretty awesome. Like, I love this style of it. Okay, this style reminds me of, you know those games where like you have to make the choices and then sometimes it leads to like a really goofy death if you get it wrong, and then if you get all the way through, like you get the good ending. I forget the names of them right now, but that is what this animation style reminds me of. And opening up with the audio from D-Day, that's pretty wild.
That signal comes today.
Okay.
This episode is sponsored by Wargaming. New players can download World of Tanks and use the...
Shout out to promos. Everybody's got to get that bag. If you want to support them, do this. I get nothing from that. If you want to support me, though, the best way is to subscribe to the channel. It's what helps the channel's momentum go. YouTube, it shows the videos to other people, all that good stuff.
For free goodies. Link in the description. D-Day, June 6th, 1944.
And that's even the iconic photo that we see, the one that's always inside the boat looking out, except you can see the horizon way too clearly. Normally, this is all just smoke and devastation.
Months of effort have been building up to this day. Throughout England, 500,000 men have been gathered at staging areas to strike across the channel as soon as the signal is given.
It's going all in, or to go if you play 2T Ray. There's like 3 people out there that are going to get that joke. But yes, this was the or-to-go play of World War II.
Men from the United States, Britain, Canada, Australia, Belgium, Czechoslovakia, France, Greece, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, and Poland. Today, we'll be telling the American story, as best it can be told in a few short minutes, and over the coming weeks, thanks to the generous support of Wargaming, we will tell the story of 3 of the other major players involved. But that story begins with a dinner in Tehran in 1943.
As most think, I did not expect a story of D-Day to begin in Iran.
For the first time, the leaders of the most powerful allied nations, the United States, the USSR, and the British Empire, met in one room. For years, Stalin, his nation battered by the Nazi invasion and bearing the brunt of the human cost of the war against Germany.
That seems like a terrible decision. Like, if word of that meeting got out, why would you not, as Germany, send, like, anything you could just to try and get, like, a bomb in that location? They had to have been in a bunker, right? Something incredibly underground.
Pressed the Allies to open up a second front to the war by invading France. The British had pushed back, arguing for operations in North Africa, and then an assault on Italy. But now, with the USSR winning on the Eastern Front, the demands from Stalin became harder to deny, and simultaneously, everyone started to think of the post-war settlement. If the Allies won without British and American troops liberating Western Europe, how could they stop the USSR from claiming huge swaths of land, and perhaps even, at least politically, dominating the continent?
Well, right, because it's that weird thing where you have to It's like the group project, right? Where you send like a GIF in the group text, and then you're like, dude, I should get a part of this grade, right? I helped.
And so,
I helped, like moral support.
An agreement was made out in the deserts of Iran. The Western powers would open up a second front by invading France in May of 1944. Plans were drawn up. An amphibious operation of this size had never been tried. Men and material would have to be drawn back from around the world. New technologies would have to be invented. Engineering feats previously only discussed in conference rooms would have to be put to the test under wartime conditions. But the first decision that had to be
literally trial by fire. Also, it's interesting in this time before satellites, because if satellite imagery did exist, this would have been the most obvious thing to detect ever.
Made was where to land. There were two possible targets: Calais, the closest point in Europe to England, or Normandy, one of the farthest on the Channel coast. Calais was the sane, sensible place to land, but it had two notable disadvantages. First, terrain in which you could easily get bogged down, and second, the fact that it was the sane, sensible place to land. Reviewing the battle plan, Eisenhower and Montgomery were in agreement. They wanted the element of surprise, with the possibility of being able to rush off the beaches. So the decision was made. Normandy it would be. But this would require one of the greatest...
Looking at it from... Well, but then again, see, I always forget, obviously this is a span of miles. My dumb brain was sitting here like, but wouldn't they be able to see everybody coming into Normandy from out here? No, obviously not. But interesting they didn't decide to just fortify all of it. I don't know, because in everything I learned from Oversimplified, it feels like they would have just done their best to wall off everything.
It would be. But this would require one of the greatest counterintelligence operations ever attempted to keep the secrets safe, not to mention the equipment and the manpower on an even greater scale. Entire harbors had to be fabricated which could be shipped over from England. More landing craft needed time to roll off the factory lines, so the operation was delayed until June. Finally, the day arrived.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here like we can barely make a coffee pot that works in 2020.
June 4th, 1944. Planes prep, final drills are run through, tens of thousands of men board ships for the invasion, and then the rain starts to roll in. Soon it becomes a storm. Ferocious waves sweep the channel. Clouds completely block the sky. High winds buffet any craft that ventures on sea, land, and especially air. Eisenhower is forced to make the decision. The attack must be delayed. Rain continues to pour the next day. A council of Allied commanders is called. If they delay again, they won't be able to launch until July. They need to do the channel crossing at night. They need to do commando raids and minesweeping when the unsuspecting Germans will have the fewest patrols out.
I didn't even think about that, right? The people that go out before the invasion. That was actually the guy I talked to, Donald Fida. I still say Google his name, Don F-I-D-A, if you get the chance, because some of the stuff he did, I don't know how much of his story's out there. I've got like 45 minutes of an interview with him, but he was the guy who went before everyone else. And that, like being a part of D-Day is something incomprehensible to my brain. Being the one who goes in front of everybody, so like, oh yeah, there's still mines there, there's still snipers there, there's still nobody to distract from what you are doing. That's like a whole nother level. Those guys, I figured those guys couldn't go on the beaches because their cojones were so big and iron, they would have to be dragging them through the sand, and that would just bog them down. So that must be why they sent those people early on. Like, in all seriousness, it just... And I know a lot of the people who study more about the wars, obviously, than I have commented the pressures that would make you have to do something like this. But it's still, in my hindsight, in my 2022 vision, I'm just like, I can't.
But for a crossing of this magnitude, they need nearly full moon visibility. Even if they did decide to brave a launch without the full moon, tidal conditions wouldn't be right for another 2 weeks. What do? They've got thousands of men already holed up on boats, getting seasick and nervous and just plain stir-crazy. They've already started moving equipment and forces into staging areas which can clearly only be targeting one place, Normandy. And they've had to alert enough people up and down the chain as to the nature of the operation that with each passing day, the odds of keeping their landing location a secret plummet. But
yeah, because it's that whole thing of 3 people can keep a secret when 2 of them are dead. The more people you let in on it, the greater the chance that that knowledge is going to leak. But maybe the stir-crazy factor, I hate to say this, but like maybe it helped. Maybe it contributed because those dudes just wanted to get off that damn boat at that point.
To cross in this weather, that would be madness. Then a captain is ushered in. He's an RAF meteorologist, and he is about to make what may well be the most consequential weather report of all time. He says he believes it's going to be clear on the 6th. Eisenhower nods. The operation is a go. 6,000 ships begin to steam across the channel. Minesweepers fan out ahead of them, clearing a path. For weeks, the Allied forces have bombed the German Air Force in the region nearly to oblivion. No enemy interceptors exist to spot the waves of gliders and transport planes carrying 17,000 airborne troops.
Literally just the airborne. Oh my god. And again, my brain trying to comprehend this. I don't know if you saw in the video, but my posture, I'm physically starting to do the like crossing of my arm. Like, it's just...
Ships won't reach the beaches until dawn, but the airborne infantry has night work to do. First in are the Pathfinders, the men whose job it is to light the drop zones for all the other parachute infantry. Of the 4 planes carrying these Pathfinders...
So, the paratroopers go first, and then there's a wave of paratroopers that go before the paratroopers! I hope these people... Again, I don't know how many of them are still alive, but I hope when they were buried, you could barely see them because they were just covered in metal.
One overshoots their target, another has to bail before ever getting to France, and the remaining 2 kept most of their signaling gear in the ditched plane, leaving them desperately trying to signal the paratroopers by waving flashlights at the passing airplanes. The paratrooper drop goes even worse. Scattered by enemy anti-aircraft fire and blinded by low clouds, paratroopers jump from altitudes that are either too high, leaving them drifting slowly, unable to do anything but watch as enemy guns spit shrapnel up at them, or too low, breaking bones on landing as their parachutes don't have enough time to slow their fall. They're scattered all over, many of them landing miles from their drop zones, some landing in marshes or rivers, others being slaughtered as they drop right into the middle of the enemy. It was a harrowing and confusing night of chaotic firefights and desperate small unit actions. But the more veteran of the American airborne troops, groups like the Screaming Eagles and the 505th, managed to pull together to capture crucial road junctions, communication points, and bridges.
How? How can you still... literally decimated, right? Down to 1/10 of what it feels like they were supposed to have. They're just kicking ass.
And even destroyed some of the artillery batteries that would imperil the landing at Normandy. And they would hold fast, delaying or preventing any counterattack that might sweep the impending invasion back into the sea. Then there's the initial bombardment. Allied bombing runs go astray, causing massive damage to the civilian centers in Normandy, but doing little to weaken the dug-in German positions. As dawn breaks, though...
That's the other thing. You're dropping in knowing that the bombers are coming in after you, and it's a goofy comparison to make, but think about like in Call of Duty, right? When you call in air support and then it just drops a bomb on you. Add that to the list of things I would be worried about.
The Allied gunners can finally see their targets, and the bombardment becomes far more effective, softening up the beach for the initial assault. But there's little time remaining until the troops' scheduled landing. At 6:30 a.m. on June 6, 1944, the klaxons sound, and the assault craft are released. They plow through the chop, men huddled in their tin shells as German fire pours down, sinking entire landing craft to the bottom of the sea.
Well, yeah, and you've seen the boats from the pictures. To call it a tin can has a damn roof. These don't. This is just literally a baking tin.
Just off the Normandy coast. Then the assault craft hit the beach, ramps drop, and men charge out. But on Utah Beach, things have already gone horribly. The men look around them and the terrain's all wrong. They've landed on the wrong beach. Luckily for the Americans, the oldest man in the invasion, and the only general to actually join these ground troops, Teddy Roosevelt Jr., happens to have landed with them. The local commanders ask him what they should do, and living up to his namesake, he simply responds, "We'll start the war from right here." He correctly assessed that the beach that they'd landed on was actually a better, more easily takeable landing point than the one that the senior staff had assigned them. In a miracle of heroism and logistical coordination, he managed to reroute the entire Utah Beach invasion force to his location, direct the battle, and continuously rally the men as he walked the beach with his cane, waving his pistol. His new Utah Beach would be the first beach successfully overrun, and for his actions,
Imagine, I need to read that fun fact. No.
his pistol. His
36 days later, with his troops
new
pushing
Utah
through France,
beach
he died of a heart attack.
be the first beach successfully
Anticlimactic.
overrun.
I feel like that's like that's like the TikTok meme where like you see the people and then it cuts to what they did in the future, and inevitably you're just like face palming about something. The ability of these people to think on the fly. You know what I'm saying? Like if I go to order food at a restaurant and they tell me they're out of lettuce, I'm a broken man. I'm a pile of just nothing. So to find out you landed on the wrong beach and then be like, this is a good beach, let's throw a war here.
And for his actions there, he would be awarded the Medal of Honor. Omaha, though, was a different story. Here, the pre-landing bombardment had been even less effective. The seas were choppy, landing craft took on water, and men tried to bail with their helmets. Some of the landing craft sank, and those that landed were filled with retching, seasick men. Much of the armored support that was supposed to follow them foundered in the waves, or simply got picked off as they hit the shore. Soon, the men were all pinned down against a small shingle of land that provided what little cover there was to be found on the beach. Many of the units had taken heavy casualties, and much of the command staff was dead. With units getting washed ashore in the wrong places, or scattered in the desperate scramble to try to get to the small ridge of sand that served as cover, the assault had become hopelessly disorganized. The second wave met with much the same fate. Hopelessly bogged down, withdrawal from Omaha Beach was considered, but it was the vital linking point between the British and American forces. As the day wore on, a number of ranger units began to rally and scaled the bluffs, finally managing to assault German positions on the heights.
That is the part that in everything that I've read, just over time, and I think morbid curiosity is part of the reason that you read, some of this stuff. I can't imagine, and I say this a million times, but being the first person to actually break through. Like, you would almost have to feel like a god at that point, because literally everyone else gone. And then you're like, oh, I'm in their base and not dead. And then, again, having to think on, it's that survival instinct, I guess.
At the same time, several of the naval ships came dangerously close to the beach to provide more effective support fire just as the German ammunition began to run out. Even after all of this, Omaha Beach wasn't truly cleared by the end of the 6th. But as the sun began to set on those bloodied beaches, it was clear that the American forces were there to stay. Join us next time as
they even
we
got the Zeppelins in the background. I'm smiling at the quality of the artwork in this. Extra credits, extra history. Damn fine work.
British for their covert efforts to keep the biggest invasion in history a secret. Thanks again to Wargaming for sponsoring this extra history episode.
How they didn't spill the beans on all of this is another world unto itself, I feel. Like, that is... Again, how you get through all of that is just beyond me. And I'm really happy that a lot of folks have started enjoying these video series, and it seems like some people are kind of sharing it with their friends that are history buffs. And I'm getting a lot of people that are helping me learn and recommending other things that I can check out. Again, if you dig these videos, the easiest way, the best way to show your support is to subscribe. It's the most direct way that YouTube picks up on like channels and starts showing them to other people. So I thank you for that. But should we continue this series? I mean, this covered a lot of what I had wondered about. It sounds like there's a lot of other aspects of this that could be really interesting too. So I'll leave it up to you. If people want to see the rest of it, we can definitely give it a go, sometime next week. But in the meantime, I'm going to be processing. And a really quick story before I go, just my grandpa was in, again, Northern Africa. He was in Italy, all that kind of stuff. And the more I learn about that, the more you just have to sit in awe if you have someone in your family that served, like, of the bravery that it would have taken to do that. I always feel like that's, you know, something that's worth mentioning in all of this. But take care, my friends, and as always, I will see you for the next one. Have a great one.